Shocking truth. Her 27-year-old Dubai BF drugged her for a dark party. This is the real story. In a world where glitzy skyscrapers pierced the sand-kissed skies of Dubai, a dark secret lurked beneath the surface. Imagine Sarah, vibrant and full of life, her laughter ringing like bells in the bustling nightlife of the city. But everything changed one fateful night when she met Khalid. He was charming, handsome, and a dash too mysterious. Little did she know, this was the beginning of a nightmare that would claw its way into her soul. The air was thick with tension, a shroud of mystery around him that sent shivers down her spine. Khalid's eyes sparked with secrets, burning like embers ready to ignite. That night, he promised an unforgettable experience, just the two of them in a lavish penthouse that glittered like a jewel against the starry skyline. Sarah's heart raced with excitement, but deep down, a tiny voice whispered warnings. Did she really know him? The question hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. As they danced, the rhythm pulsing through their bodies, he slipped something into her drink, a silent poison disguised as ecstasy. The laughter that had once filled her heart faded, replaced by a creeping fog. Was she losing control? Yes. She could feel the warmth slipping away, reality trembling like a mirage. Sensations blurred. Sounds echoed in twisted, cruel ways. She fought to hold on, but her limbs felt like lead, a weight she couldn't shake off. The party spiraled into chaos, shadows dancing around her, faces morphing into grotesque figures, mocking her fears. Behind every smile lay ulterior motives, twisted desires that sent a chill shooting through her veins. And just when the world darkened around her, her instincts flared. What was happening? Panic swelled within her tight chest, trembling hands. She felt like a puppet on a string, losing her very self. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a jolt, Sarah realized she wasn't alone. A figure emerged in the dim light. Eyes wide with horror, her friend, Anna, had come looking for her. Relief washed over her like a tide, but it quickly receded. Anna's face twisted in fear. They both knew there was no escaping the abyss that surrounded them. Suddenly, the music stopped, plunging them into a suffocating silence. Khalid's laugh cut through the air, sinister and hungry. "Welcome to the real party," he sneered, and the walls felt like they were closing in. What had she stumbled into? What dark truths lay waiting in the shadows? The answers loomed like specters, taunting Sarah and Anna to uncover them. In that moment of primal terror, a question echoed louder than the music that had drowned their screams. Would they escape this darkness? The silence was deafening, as if the entire room had taken a collective breath, waiting for the next act in this twisted play. Khalid's laughter echoed like gunfire, sharp and jarring against the stillness. The partygoers had frozen, their eyes darting towards Sarah and Anna, curiosity gleaming like predatory eyes in the darkness. "Come on, girls. Don't be shy," Khalid beckoned, his voice oily and smooth, but dripping with malice. "I promise the real fun is just beginning." Anna instinctively took a step back, her grip squeezing Sarah's arm tightly. The warmth of Sarah's skin felt electrified under Anna's touch. They exchanged frantic glances. Both knew they had to get out, but the thought of moving felt paralyzing. The ambience pulsed with anticipation, a beat driven by their dread. "Don't let him play with your minds," Anna whispered urgently, her breath shaky with panic. "We can find another way out. I swear." Just as Sarah nodded, a group of partygoers shifted, creating a path leading directly to the exit. But Khalid's laugh shattered that hope, the crackle of danger hanging at the edge of their peripheral vision. "Leaving so soon?" He moved closer, blocking the view to the door. "I only just started my show." His smirk was dangerously playful, teeth flashing in the dim light. The shadows around him seemed to pull and twist, almost making him a part of the darkness itself. The music thumped back to life, its pulse drowning out Sarah's thoughts. She could feel the walls closing in, the fear wrapping around her throat like a vice. Khalid's presence was intoxicating and sinister, each heartbeat drumming louder than the last. "Dance with me, Sarah? Let go," Khalid commanded, extending a hand toward her. For a brief moment, her body yearned to respond. Something deep-rooted inside her seemed to fight against his control, as if it knew surrender was not an option. "No," Anna shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. The sudden outburst drew more eyes, and for a flicker of time, Khalid's smile faltered. "Calm down, sweet Anna. You'll scare her." His voice dripped with false sweetness. Then, he turned back to Sarah, his expression darkening. "Don't make her ruin this for you." A slip of terror skated down Sarah's spine. In that heartbeat, she felt the weight of their predicament. It wasn't just about escaping the party. It was about protecting Anna and herself from a larger web that Khalid had spun. "Let us stick together. We'll make it out, I promise," she whispered to Anna. But the moment of solidarity faltered as another figure emerged from the shadows, tall, imposing, and glaring down at them. A man dressed in black, eyes sharp as knives, exuding an aura that screamed danger. The crowd parted with a gasp, whispers cascading like waves. "You need to leave. Now," the stranger commanded, voice low but firm. Was he a friend or foe? Sarah's heart raced, a whirlwind of emotions threatening to drown her in despair. "See, your friends can't help you here," Khalid taunted, leaning in closer. "Join us, or you might just regret fighting this." Would they stay and risk facing the unknown terror of Khalid's world, or follow this new figure a potential ally, or another trap lying in wait? The tension surged, squeezing Sarah's chest, as the real party unfolded in brutal play. As the towering man reached out a hand, their fates hung in the balance. Sarah could feel the lines of loyalty and danger blurring. The thirst for freedom clawed at the edges of her mind. Would she trust this stranger or fall deeper into the seductive nightmare crafted by Khalid? The choice loomed overhead, heavy and oppressive. Time was running short. Just when it seemed possible to escape, the ground fell away beneath them. "Choose wisely, Sarah. This is your one chance," the man whispered into the chaos, leaving her hanging on the precipice of decision, knowing that whatever she chose could define her fate forever. Sarah felt a rush of terror. The moment stretched, each heartbeat echoing loudly in her ears. She could see Khalid's eyes narrowing, alive with a predatory gleam, while the figure in black stood firm, his hand extended toward her like a lifeline. "Come on, Sarah," Anna cried, her voice tinged with desperation. "Let us just go." But the crowd pulsated, a living entity, holding them captive in this escalating nightmare. The friends she thought she knew, their faces now masks of twisted excitement. The music throbbed in an intensity that made her skin crawl, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. "Don't be foolish," Khalid sneered, his voice dripping with honeyed venom. "There's no escape from the fun that awaits here. You really don't want to miss this show." The towering stranger stepped closer, creating a formidable barrier between them and Khalid. "This isn't a party anymore. You know that." His voice dropped to a whisper meant only for Sarah. "Trust me, I can help you. I know what he has done." A chill shot up her spine. Did she hear that correctly? What did he know? Killjoy, Khalid hissed, rolling his eyes. "But he's right about one thing. It won't be much of a party if you're gone. So shall we play?" In that moment, Sarah felt paralyzed. Khalid's presence was intoxicating, and Anna's fear intensified the grip on her arm, anchoring her to the present. But what if the stranger was lying? Would following him plunge them deeper into danger? "Sarah," Anna's voice snapped her back to reality. "We need to go." But the man dressed in black was already shaking his head. "You don't understand. He has set a trap, and it's already closing in." The crowd began to close ranks around them. It felt like a constricting noose, drawing tight. Fear coursed through Sarah, raw and hot. With a decisive shake, she pulled herself away from Anna's grip and took a step toward the stranger. "Why should I trust you?" she challenged, narrowing her eyes. "Because you have no other choice," he replied, his expression fierce and unyielding. "This place won't let you leave without a price. Khalid holds all the cards, and he plays them to win." A low rumble of laughter spilled from Khalid, echoing against the walls like sinister thunder. "Showtime, ladies." His voice rose above the chaos. "Let us see how they dance." As if on cue, the floor beneath them vibrated. The lights flickered and dimmed, casting everything in a haunting glow. Fear washed over Sarah like ice water. There was something darker lurking beneath the glitz and glamour of the party, something she couldn't yet see. Not much time left. Follow me, the stranger urged, gripping her arm with a surprising gentleness that felt oddly assuring. Khaled's eyes flared, an animalistic rage blooming across his face. You think you can just walk away? This is my domain. You will pay for this insolence. Panic ignited within Sarah. One choice led to freedom, the other to Khaled's wrath. The echoes of laughter twisted into a nightmare, each giggle a blade in her heart. She glanced back at Anna, uncertainty washing over her. Should she leave her friend to fend for herself? No. We stick together, Sarah shouted, reaching out for Anna's hand. But the stranger was already pulling Sarah back, moving toward a side door that flickered in and out of view amid the chaos. The relentless weight of the crowd pressed closer, and she could feel the tension hanging like a heavy fog, crushing her resolve. They're coming, the stranger warned, urgency sharpening his tone. With every second that passed, Sarah felt the distance between safety and danger narrow. She tore her gaze from Khaled's boiling fury, understanding that this was it. Now, we have to go? The stranger said, pushing her onward. Just as they were about to burst through the door, Khaled's voice sliced through the air, dripping with venomous intent. You can run, but I will hunt you down. The door swung open, revealing darkness beyond, ready to swallow them whole. Behind them, Khaled's laughter echoed, cruel and haunting. As they staggered into the void, Sarah's heart raced. The threat was still alive, the shadows clung with malevolence, and she could feel dread closing in once more. What awaited them in the dark? Would they truly escape Khaled's grasp, or was something worse waiting just beyond the threshold of freedom? With every step they took, the darkness seemed to pulse, swirling around them like a living, breathing entity. The moment they slipped through the door, Sarah felt the world she knew slip away, replaced by a cold unknown that made her skin prickle with unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were still under Khaled's watchful gaze, the weight of his presence hovering like a storm cloud ready to unleash chaos. Keep moving, the stranger said urgently, his voice filled with intensity that left no room for hesitation. They stumbled further into the shadowy corridor, the dim glow of flickering lights casting eerie shapes on the cracked walls. Where are we going? Sarah gasped, struggling to keep pace as fear seized her chest. Panic surged in her throat as her thoughts raced. Was this truly a way out, or just another trap? To safety, he replied, glancing back, eyes scanning the hallway. But the real danger is coming up fast. Khaled has eyes everywhere. Anna was panting beside her, adrenaline fueling her resolve. You left him behind, Sarah? He'll find us. I know, Sarah murmured, her heart dropping at the thought of what Khaled might do. Memories of playful banter and shared laughter twisted into a haunting specter, the man she once thought charming now a shadow figure of malice. Trust me, the stranger urged again, his grip tightening around her wrist as they turned a corner. You need to see what's at stake. The corridor opened into a larger, dimly lit room, and a shiver crawled up Sarah's spine as they stepped into the space. The faint hum of machinery buzzed around them, and beneath it all, an undercurrent of something sinister throbbed like a heartbeat. What is this place? Anna whispered, eyes wide as she surveyed their surroundings. An old club, one of Khaled's hideouts, the stranger explained, waving a hand toward a series of flickering screens mounted on the walls. This is where he conducts his activities. As Sarah's gaze fell upon the screens, a jolt of fear coursed through her. Each monitor displayed different parts of the party they had just fled, men and women lost in a disorienting dance, smiles warped, eyes glazed over. In one corner, a group was huddled, laughter spiraling out of control, while in another, a figure slumped against the wall, expression blank. Oh my God, Anna breathed, her horror mirrored in Sarah's eyes. The once vibrant energy of the party now looked like a macabre performance. You're not safe yet, the stranger said, pulling them into the shadows. Look, in the center of the room stood a makeshift platform, where a spotlight illuminated a large, pulsating cage. Inside, a group of people writhed, their faces contorted in confusion and fright, trapped in a frame that gave the ghastly impression of a twisted game. The crowd from the party was gathering, their laughter mingling with a sense of dread. What were they doing? Sarah stammered, the sickening knot in her stomach tightening. Playing for entertainment, he replied grimly. Khalid feeds on fear. He enjoys seeing how far he can push people before they break. Fear rooted Sarah to the ground as she absorbed his words. Khalid wasn't just a manipulator. He was a monster playing God with lives. Suddenly, the static from the screens erupted with Khalid's voice, deep and commanding. Welcome back, everyone. His image flickered on the largest screen, flashing that chilling smile. Let the games begin. Panic gripped Sarah. She could feel them all shifting closer. Khalid wasn't he giving up that easily. Come on. The stranger called. We need to find a way out now. No. Sarah suddenly felt a surge of defiance. We can't leave them. Her voice was steadier than she felt. The faces in the cage pleaded for help, and the realization that they couldn't just abandon them clawed at her heart. Sarah, we don't have time. The stranger insisted, eyes wild with urgency. We need to escape before he realizes we're here. But Sarah's resolve hardened. I'd rather face Khalid again than leave them in this nightmare. As she stepped toward the cage, the stranger looked at her in disbelief. You don't know what he is capable of. What if it's me next? She countered fiercely. She took a deep breath, knowing that leading a charge into Khalid's twisted realm would come with consequences. From somewhere behind them, Khalid's laughter echoed, filled with dark amusement. Oh, this is going to be fun. Sarah's heart raced as the reality of their predicament settled in. The choice to act was hers, and not just for her own survival. But could she truly make a difference? The tension crackled in the air. Would Sarah's courage lead to salvation or doom? Could she save those trapped in the cage and, in that fight, save herself? With a steely determination igniting within her, Sarah began to formulate a plan. But as she shared her thoughts with the stranger, an even darker shadow fell behind them, announcing a quickening danger. Even now, danger was not far behind, and it seemed Khalid was done playing games. What would be their next move? And how would they escape this realm of madness before the clock ran out? The piercing sound of Khalid's laughter echoed off the walls, shutting down any remaining shreds of hope. Sarah's heart rattled in her chest as a wave of dread washed over her. Behind them, shadows shifted and stretched, revealing the looming figures of guards, their faces emotionless and threatening. The stranger's grip tightened on Sarah's wrist, but it barely registered. Her focus was locked on the glowing cage, where the desperate cries of the trapped grew more potent, pulling at her very soul. Let us go, the stranger urged again, but Sarah couldn't tear her eyes away from the scene unfolding before them. No, we can't just leave them. Her voice rang, louder than the laughter. It felt like a declaration, a spark igniting her fear into raw determination. In that moment, she could almost hear her heartbeat echoing in the vast emptiness. Think, we're outnumbered. They'll kill us, he hissed, glancing back as if the guards were already upon them. Panic flashed in his eyes, nearly blinding him to her resolve. The sudden clang from the cage startled Sarah. A woman inside had managed to stand. Her face was streaked with tears, eyes wild with terror. Help us, please. They're going to. Her voice cut off by a convulsive shudder as the guards moved closer, shadows darkening like a storm ready to crash. Sarah's throat tightened. This was not just entertainment for Khalid. He thrived on fear, and what better way to cultivate that than by forcing people to beg for their lives? We have to distract them. It's the only way, she said, taking a deep breath as the whirlwind of terror around her sharpened into razor focus. Are you crazy? They'll crush us. The stranger whisper shouted, fear dripping from his voice, but Sarah glanced at the flickering screens again. A plan began to form, a risky, reckless plan. I'll create a diversion. You find a way to free them. If we don't try now, they'll pay for our cowardice. Sarah, he grabbed her shoulders, urgency pouring into his tone. If you go out there, I know what's at stake. She cut him off, eyes locking onto his, merging fear with determination. But they can't die like this. Not for entertainment. Before he could protest further, she tore her gaze away and advanced towards the cage. The guards were still too engrossed in the crowd's dark excitement to notice her inching closer. A plan truly began to crystallize. She steeled her resolve, knowing full well she was risking everything in this decision. Hey, Sarah shouted, forcing her voice to project over the tumult. It felt harsh, raw, but desperation slashed through her, sharpening her tone. You want a show? Look at me. Heads turned. The laughter dimmed momentarily, confusion mingling with curiosity across the crowd's faces. Khalid's eyes darted toward her, icy and calculating. Let them go, she challenged, not the slightest bit of hesitation in her voice. If you want entertainment, I'll give you a real show. Khalid's smile widened, unsettling, as cruel as it was charismatic. A brave little crowd favorite, aren't you? But this isn't a stage performance, darling, he taunted, flickering between screens. The crowd leaned forward, spellbound, as if awaiting an awakening in a grand play. Now the weight of their scrutiny pressed against her, and fear twisted in her gut, but Sarah pushed through it. This was her chance. If she could not only draw attention but also lure Khalid and his guards away from the cage, perhaps there was still a glimmer of hope for the trapped souls. Suddenly, crashing sounds erupted by the entrance they'd come through. The stranger was suddenly beside her, eyes wild. We need to go? Now. Confusion sprung in her mind as she glanced back. That was no guard. It was chaos breaking loose, a group yelling and shoving through the entrance, shrouded shadows hustling forward. She could barely process the new threat, but her heart sang with a flicker of excitement. Khalid's face darkened, fury bubbling beneath his calm facade. What is happening out there? His voice thundered, commanding over the growing confusion that it suddenly became a race against time. The weight of their choices bore down on Sarah as the air chilled around them. Khalid was losing control, if she could just keep him distracted long enough. But the question lingered heavily in her heart. Could they truly escape before the darkness consumed everything? With unsteady breaths, she locked eyes with the stranger. Are you ready to face this madness with me? But as the shouting grew closer, and the urgency of footfalls echoed against the walls, Sarah feared it might be too late. Would she lead them into salvation or straight into another trap? And as Khalid's expression twisted in anger, one thing became painfully clear. No matter what, they were running out of time. The surge of chaos at the entrance seemed to rip the very air apart, each shout vibrating around Sarah as if the walls themselves were responding to the unrest. The stranger beside her looked like he might crumble under the sudden pressure, every muscle tensed, eyes darting about like a frightened animal. Stay close, he hissed, but Sarah's focus was locked on Khalid, whose expression was morphing into molten rage. Kill them, Khalid roared, pointing a finger at the door where the shadows poured in like a flooding tide. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Sarah, the stranger tugged her sleeve, his voice quaking. We can't just stand here. No, she insisted, hands shaking with a mix of fear and adrenaline. We can't abandon them. Khalid's laughter erupted again, cruel and cutting. Such loyalty. It's cute, really. He motioned toward the guards, and they began to move toward the entrance, stepping over the scattered bystanders. In that instant, something snapped in Sarah. She wouldn't let the chaos swallow her, she would manipulate it. Clenching her fists tightly, she was ready to provoke him further. If you want a show, she called out, voice steady despite the tremors in her legs, then let us give them one. Every life matters in this arena. Why not let them compete for their freedom? That's the thrill you crave, isn't it? The eyes of the crowd turned back to her, intrigued, boiling with anticipation. Khalid's brows knitted together, searching for the angle. It was exactly what she wanted. What do you propose? He sneered, shifting his attention back to her, the weight of his stare making her stomach churn. Let me fight, Sarah declared, the fiery resolve in her voice making it sound more like a challenge than a plea. Let me compete for their freedom. Let me show you what real courage looks like. The stranger beside her gasped, and for a brief moment, the crowd's attention was split. Khalid hesitated, calculating how to maintain control. You think you can entertain me? He questioned, a smirk creeping back to his lips. Better believe it. Sarah shot back. If I lose, you get to have your precious fun with me like a game of chance. But if I win, you let them go. All of them. Khalid seemed to revel in that proposition. The audience murmured, hanging on her words, caught in the spell of the moment. This wasn't just about saving lives anymore. It was about defiance, about seizing the power for herself. I accept, Khalid said, his voice dripping with dark glee. Let us see if you can hold up under pressure. He gestured dramatically, the intensity of the atmosphere shifting as more guards moved closer, eyes narrowing on Sarah. Let us do this. She breathed out, fear and exhilaration mingling in a dizzying cocktail, registering the faces of those trapped behind the cage flickering with a glimmer of hope. But before she could rethink her choice, the ceiling vibrated as more shouts echoed amidst the growing chaos. Run! The stranger shouted, pulling her away, urging not just for movement, but for action. They're coming. We need to, but Sarah didn't want to retreat. Not now. The match was set, the stakes raised. Confusion erupted as the guards had to decide among themselves. Rush her or manage the growing crowd that surged with excited energy as rumors flew. Barry! A familiar voice yelled from the back, cutting through the chaos. Sarah's eyes darted to the figure fighting through the throng, determination lighting up their face. She could barely recognize him. It was her old friend, one she thought lost to the dark corners of this bitter place. Sarah! He pushed through to her side, breathless. I heard about the plan. We're here to help. Alarms and cries erupted around them. The crowd buzzed, uncertainty mingling with tension. The stage was set for chaos to reign. And in that whirlwind, amidst the rising stakes, the line between salvation and doom blurred dangerously close. Are you ready for what is coming? She asked, heart racing at the thought that everything could collapse into madness. But before anyone could answer, the confines of this twisted arena burst into absolute uproar, sending every creature into hysteria. As the guards converged and Khalid's wrath tightened like a noose, Sarah's heart thundered with the realization. Would they stand their ground, or would it all implode into dread? Are you ready? She pressed Barry, breath quickening as the shadows swarmed. Yes, he replied, determination matching her intensity. But behind them, the night coiled with danger. A single question echoed in her mind: how far would they have to go to survive? The tension in the air thickened, heavy like a storm cloud ready to burst. Sarah could feel it pressing down on her chest as the blood roared in her ears, drowning out the shouts and screams. The crowd, once her ally, now hung on a knife's edge, waiting for Khalid's next move. Do you hear that? Barry whispered, eyes wide as they darted towards the entrance. The guards' footsteps were pounding like a war drum, each step a reminder of the urgent countdown ticking away. Panic twirled through the air, palpable, electric, but Khalid was enjoying this. He reveled in the chaos, eyes glinting like a predator sizing up its prey. What's the matter, Sarah? Feeling the pressure? He leaned closer, an unsettling grin stretching across his face. Let us get the game started. Games. Sarah echoed, her breath hitching. You want games? Let us give them a real show. She felt a rush of adrenaline spike through her veins. With both fear and defiance coursing through her, Sarah stepped forward, arms raised, channeling every ounce of courage she had. Her crowd now began to respond, voices rising, growing louder, filling the void with shouts of support. It was exhilarating and terrifying. Fight for them. Someone yelled from the back, igniting a fire that crackled through the throng. Yeah, what do we have to lose? Another voice chimed in. As the energy shifted, the guards staggered, uncertainty rippling through their ranks. Khalid's smirk faltered for a heartbeat, and that moment was all Sarah needed. I'll show you courage, Khalid, she declared. I won't just fight to win, but to show everyone here what true freedom looks like. The guards hesitated, some exchanging glances, as if they were suddenly aware they weren't just pawns in Khalid's twisted game anymore. Barry's voice cut through the whirlwind. If you're really going to do this, we need a plan. We need to fight smarter, not harder. You're right, Sarah conceded, eyes blazing. We need to rally everyone. Together, we can turn the tide. Steeling herself, she addressed the crowd, her voice booming over the din. Listen up. They want to break us, but we won't let them. We fight for each other. The roaring cheers of agreement made Sarah's heart surge with hope. They think we're nothing. But look at how many of us are here. We can break this system together. But Barry shook his head, urgency returning to his demeanor. We can't stall too long. They'll regroup and overwhelm us. We need to split them. Before Sarah could reply, a crash resonated from behind, sparks flying as a guard swung a heavy baton, smashing it against a nearby column. The crowd screamed and began to scatter, a wave of panic rippling through. Sarah felt the fear clawing at the edges of her mind again. "Barry, we can't lose them," she shouted, grabbing his arm and bolting toward the exit, weaving through the frenzy. But in the confusion, Khalid's laughter rose above everything. "You think you can escape this, Sarah? It's just begun." Sarah dared not look back, pushing past strangers, adrenaline fueling her legs like never before. She knew they had to reach the sanctuary beyond the arena walls before Khalid unleashed his wrath upon them all. Behind her, she could hear the growing roar of the guards rallying, their orders barking through the chaos. "Quick, this way," Barry urged, yanking her aside as a group surged forward, a wall of uniformed brutality closing in. Just then, a voice called out from the shadows, low and gravelly, slicing through the mayhem. "Hey, over here." Sarah hesitated, eyes wide as hope and terror battled within her. "Who was that?" "Trust me," the voice insisted, a stranger standing at the edge of an alley, beckoning them with urgency which hung in the air like a lifebuoy tossed into a stormy sea. The decision hung heavy between them: confront the chaos or take a chance on an unknown savior. In a turbulent moment, everything hinged on faith, on courage, on the belief that escape was still possible. "Sarah, we have to go?" Barry insisted, breaking her reverie. But as they approached the alley, the sky above darkened, with the ominous sounds of rushing feet, and Sarah felt the very ground shake beneath her. Could they trust this stranger, or was it another trap waiting to close in around them? Choose now. Her heart raced as the line was drawn, and the shadows crept closer, hungry for a reckoning. In that split second, Sarah could see the alleyway swallow the stranger whole. The shadows pulsed around Barry and her, thrumming with urgency, as if they had a heartbeat all their own. The figure looked frantic yet determined, beckoning with a sense of desperation that pulled at Sarah's instincts. Fear and adrenaline clashed inside her, but the weight of their situation pressed even heavier against her chest. "Barry," she whispered, unsure of what to do. The guards were closing in, their boots pounding like thunder, and Khalid's laughter echoed in her mind, a sinister reminder that time wasn't on their side. "Trust him, Sarah. We have no choice," Barry urged, his grip on her arm tightening as they stood at the precipice of decision. The noise of the crowd had dimmed, but the chaos within her surged like a tidal wave. With a determined nod, Sarah surged forward, dragging Barry along as they ventured into the alley. The shadows swallowed them, and the sounds of chaos faded into distant echoes, the entrance to safety behind them. But the unknown looming ahead. The stranger was older, scruffy, with a dark hoodie pulled tight around his face. "You made the right choice," he said, urgency dripping from every word. "You need to keep moving. There's no time to explain." "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, but the stranger didn't meet her eye. Instead, he glanced back toward the entrance as if his instinct warned him of the encroaching danger. "Just a friend," he replied, darting deeper down the alley, and Sarah hesitated. "Where does this lead?" Barry inquired, clearly wary but hoping for a glimmer of safety. "An old maintenance tunnel. It connects to the metro. They want to think to search there," the stranger said, his voice low and frantic. "We're not safe yet." They hurried behind him, the flickering light from a single bulb illuminating the walls of crumbling brick. The air was thick with the smell of dampness, echoing their desperation. Shadows danced as they pressed on, each step stretching the anticipation like a taut string ready to snap. Suddenly, a thunderous crash reverberated from the street above, sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. "They're coming," she gasped, her heart racing. "Faster," the stranger urged, and they continued, the claustrophobic tunnel closing in on them as dread wove through Sarah's thoughts. What if this was another trap? What if they were simply trading one danger for another? "Why are you helping us?" she blurted out, the need for clarity pushing back her fear. He paused for a moment, glancing back over his shoulder. "Because I've seen what Khalid does. I can't stand by anymore. This is bigger than just you, it's about all of us." They turned a corner, the tunnel narrowing even more as they reached a heavy steel door. "This leads to the railway tracks," he said, sliding it open with a creak that echoed into the darkness. "But we can't just jump on a train. They're on high alert. We need to be smart." "Smart?" Barry scoffed, his voice tense. "Right now, survival is all I care about." "Then you'd better not argue," the stranger snapped, irritation flaring like a flame. The reality of their situation began to sink in, and Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as the gravity of their choices crashed in on her. As they stepped out onto the tracks, Barry nudged Sarah. "What's the plan? We can't just wander around waiting to get caught. We find cover and wait for the next train," the stranger said. "And when we reach the metro station, we blend in with the crowd." The moment held them like a fragile glass ornament. But as they crouched low, they could hear the distant shouts of guards filtering through the tunnels. The clattering of boots neared, and Sarah's heart raced. What if their fleeting safe haven vanished in an instant? And then she heard it, a loud clank, followed by a humming noise rumbling in the distance, growing louder. The train was coming. "Stay close," their mysterious guide hissed, his eyes wide with urgency. But with each passing second, Sarah felt a growing realization prickling at the back of her mind. How far would they have to run? What had they walked into? Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered, illuminating their surroundings and the shadowy figures at the tunnel's entrance. "Time us up," she thought, a rush of terror flooding her veins. As the guards surged forward, Sarah saw a flicker of movement in the shadows behind them. Was it allies or more enemies? And just like that, their fate hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of chaos. The train roared into the station, its lights cutting through the darkness like a knife. The rattling of steel wheels echoed off the tunnel's walls, drowning out the frantic footsteps of the guards. Sarah's breath quickened, her pulse hammering in her ears as she glanced at Barry and the stranger. The moment stretched, hanging in suspense like a thread on the edge of snapping. "Now," the stranger shouted, pushing them forward. They scrambled toward the train, the doors sliding open with a hiss. "Get inside," Barry urged, almost shoving Sarah as they dove into the car, just as the guards shouted behind them. The compartments were nearly empty, save for a couple of menacing figures in the corner, eyes hollow and alert. "What if they see us?" Sarah whispered, her chest tight with fear. She could barely think over the pounding of her heart. "They want tea." The stranger motioned for them to huddle low, pulling down his hood to reveal a somewhat familiar face. It took a moment for Sarah to catch on. "I worked with your father, Sarah. This isn't just about you, it's about surviving them." Her mind reeled. This was someone she thought could be an ally, but doubts gnawed at her edges. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Because no one can be trusted here, not even me." He clenched his fists, aligning his focus straight ahead as the train began to roll out of the station. "What do you know about Khalid?" "Enough." Barry's eyes darted back toward the other passengers, sensing their brewing tension. "We need to keep a low profile, but if we're going to get out of this, he's involved in something monstrous." "Something monstrous?" "You have no idea." The stranger leaned closer, his breath hot with urgency. "He's harnessing power from people's fear, he feeds off it. They're using a new drug that makes people unthinkingly obedient. That's why the guards are relentless. They aren't just hunting you. They're hunting anyone who stands against them." Sarah's throat tightened, the truth hitting her like a punch to the gut. She glanced at Barry, who looked equally shaken. "What happens now? If he's feeding off fear, how do we fight that?" "We don't fight fear with fear," the stranger replied sharply. "We expose him. We show them that there's a reason to fight back." He hesitated, cutting his eyes to the window. "Look." The city landscape blurred by as they sped deeper into the metro's underbelly. Outside, shadows loomed, hints of movement flickering through the dim light. Sarah strained her ears, sensing an unnatural stillness drowning the clanging metal of the train wheels. "If we're going to make it through this," the stranger continued, "we need a plan. Wait till the next station," and then a sudden jolt rocked the train, metal grinding together as the lights flickered violently, plunging the car into darkness. Sarah felt the world stop, every hair on her body standing on edge. "What is happening?" Barry shouted, grasping for Sarah's arm as panic surged through them. The stranger's expression turned grim. "This is it. They've found us." The train screeched to a halt, the emergency lights bathing the compartment in a red hue, highlighting terror etched on every face. Fear rippled through the air, a suffocating blanket. Without warning, the doors blasted open, a flood of guards pouring in, guns at the ready, as the stranger turned to Sarah and Barry. "Get out. Now." Heart pounding, Sarah grabbed Barry's hand. They leaped from the train, but in that split second, she heard the guards shout, "Stop." But they didn't tee. They ran, pushing past other passengers caught in the grip of confusion. Tension hung thick, the air charged with impending doom. As they rounded another corner, a pair of arms grabbed Sarah, yanking her into the shadows. You shouldn't have run. The world spun as everything plunged into chaos. She spun around, ready to fight for her life, and in front of her stood someone she never expected to see. Sarah. A familiar voice called amidst the commotion, edging toward her like a dark revelation. She stood frozen, every nerve screaming. What are you doing here? But before she could process the answer, the weight of the situation crashed around them like a tidal wave, and one question loomed larger than ever. Who amongst them would they trust when their lives were hanging by a thread? As the chaos swirled around them, Sarah's heart raced wildly, caught between disbelief and a flicker of hope. There, amid the confusion, stood her brother, Daniel. What are you doing here? She breathed, disbelief and relief washing over her. Can't leave you to fight this alone, can I? He replied, urgency etched in the lines of his face. It felt surreal, like a dream, as memories flooded back of late-night strategy sessions and laughter shared over ice cream. But there was no time for nostalgia. The guards were closing in, their footsteps echoing ominously down the corridor. We've got to move, Daniel urged, gripping Sarah's arm tightly, adrenaline sparking like electricity between them. Where's Anna? Sarah gasped, fear prickling her skin. Right behind you, Daniel shouted as he led them toward an emergency exit. But there was no time to look back. The thundering ambience of the guards could turn deadly any moment. They burst through the door, breathless and racing into an alley that glimmered with the faint glow of streetlights. At the end of the dark passage, they could hear the muffled sounds of the city, oblivious to the horrors they'd left behind. Turning to Daniel, Sarah's voice held a fierce edge. We need to regroup. We can't leave anyone behind. Where's the stranger? Daniel asked, noting the absence of their mysterious ally. The stranger, whom they initially thought was an ally, had slipped away in the fray. Focus, Sarah shouted, the weight of leadership pressing down on her. We can't dwell on who's not here. Khalid has to be stopped, and we want to achieve that split apart. Just then, Anna emerged from the shadows, panting heavily with determination gleaming in her eyes. I heard. Was Daniel here? Are we safe? We have to stick together, Daniel reiterated, pulling both girls in closer as they all took a moment to orient themselves. Sarah, I know you made a deal with Khalid, Anna said softly, concern knitting her brow. You put yourself at risk. I did what I had to, Sarah replied, her resolve hardening. It's not about bravado, it's about freedom. We can't let him use fear to manipulate us. If we unite everyone, we can expose his game. The plan began to take shape. They needed allies, people who could see through Khalid's web of terror. The deeper they wandered through the alleys, the more warmth and unity bloomed in Sarah's chest. I know a way to gather the others, Daniel suggested, urgency tightening his expression. We have to go through the old underground clubs where people still gather. If we can bring them together, we can create a force to rival Khalid's. Right? Sarah nodded, determination stealing her spine. Let us do it. They rushed down a narrow path, shadows following like ghostly ties, until they reached a hidden door thick with dust. The sound of music and laughter spilled from a cracked window, the real heartbeat of the city. What is the plan? Anna whispered nervously, feeling the pulsating rhythm of gathering chaos. We inspire them, Sarah said, her voice solid. We fight back through their fear. And in that moment, clarity surged through her like wildfire. They were stronger together, built from a collective will that no darkness could extinguish. Without a second thought, she pushed the door open, and they stepped in, met by a rush of faces, blanketed in shadow and light. Hey, Sarah shouted, her voice lifting over the echoing bass. Heads turned, surprised, curious. We're here to reveal the truth. Khalid's power comes from your fear, and together, we can break his grip on this city. The crowd had paused, absorbing her words like the morning sun breaking through the clouds. Are you ready to fight? Daniel echoed, hands raised as determination swept through the crowd. A roar erupted like thunder, drowning out the bad energy surrounding them. This was at the moment they would rise up and reclaim their lives from Khalid's dark clutches. As they chanted, louder and louder, Sarah felt a surge of hopeful energy coursing through her veins, building a bridge between fear and courage. Khalid had thrived on their innocence and chaos, but together, they were forging into something far more powerful: community, unity, hope. Then, a figure appeared at the edge of their gathering. A woman stepped forward, her presence commanding. "We've been waiting for this moment," she declared, the fire in her eyes mirroring Sarah's own. "Khalid will see how strong we are." The crowd surged with renewed energy, the air vibrating with their collective resolve. Friends who had lost hope were returning to fight, guided by the lantern of bravery shining bright between them. And just like that, Sarah knew they would face whatever Khalid threw at them together. She had come so far and endured the darkest moments. But here, with her loved ones, she felt invincible. "Let us get to work," she commanded, excitement lacing her voice. Stepping out into the night, bright with possibilities, Sarah led the charge. The freedom they sought was just a breath away, and she was no longer afraid. This was their battle, their legacy, and it was going to ignite a revolution that would echo through every corner, striking the heart of darkness, ripping it apart. Until peace reigned once more, their chant rolled through the streets, an unyielding anthem of strength. It was clear, this was just the beginning. Together, they would reclaim their city against the tyranny of fear. Now, dear viewers, this is where we draw the curtain on this chapter, but there is so much more to uncover. You need to subscribe now, don't miss what happens next. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this story alive. We want to see your reactions. Flood the comments with your thoughts, theories, and predictions about what could come next. And if you know someone who needs to experience this journey, share this video with at least 5 friends right now. This is the moment to show your support. So don't wait even one more second.